Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August the 10th, 2020. Ronaldo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're about 48 to 72 hours from the major depression of the ripple effect going across collegiate sports. And we're going to find out from the guys that are in the room where it happens. But I also want to thank those frontline healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, first responders for this admirable job that you do every day trying to keep America safe and alive.
We really appreciate that, Big C. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you'll be looking at a still picture. Man, I've been pausing, Big C. I was pausing like they were pausing at the golf tournament in San Francisco over the weekend. We'll talk about the champion of that coming up later. But I also am very happy to always mention that I will never pause on the Veterans Crisis Hotline, Big C. They really are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, for us to be able to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number each of our shows is a great public service to America, Charlton, and our veterans who have fought so admirably to keep this country safe. We lose some 22 veterans a day to suicide, and our administration never addresses that issue, Charlton. They'll talk about things that they've done that were already put in place by the last administration, but nothing that they've done to move forward as far as the care of vulnerable veterans, Charlton, who suffer mentally and physically once they get back into mainstream society. And losing some 22 a day to suicide is a horrific number, Charlton, that people don't pay attention to because of COVID-19. But we also lose veterans to COVID-19. So when we think about the totality of numbers of veterans that are lost every day, those numbers are astronomical. So we will always continue to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, because when people are struggling mentally and physically, they need an outlet, and people in public should not hesitate to give the number out also.
Very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T, Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. And yes, sports teams are doing it too, Big C. Let TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. For those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can find opportunities there also. You know what I really appreciate, Big C, about whenever I talk to you, it's so hot in California. It's like 100 degrees, give or take a couple of degrees. And then a friend of mine down in Las Vegas said, well, it's 113 here the other day. I said, 113? That's almost like being in an oven. But every time I talk to you, either have the sprinklers going or Mother Nature keeps water in the South, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, she likes to try to cool us down on these hot days.
Yeah.
The humidity is not appreciated after the rain that we get, but we've had rain every day for the past 6 days down here.
Wow.
So, I mean, the biggest struggle is going to be able to go out and try to be able to cut that grass after it stops growing.
Well, we know you don't cut your own grass, Big C, and you definitely don't let anybody else cut the grass around the barn. So it's off here at 11 Ward. But I want to talk about cutting grass because, it's one thing. I was telling someone in television that we were doing some work with coming up, about to expand into another market in California. And he said, how do I find your show again? Someone was asking me about it. And I said, just say it to your phone, Big C Sports Podcast. It'll pop up anywhere in the world. He said, really? I said, yeah. And so he did that. He said, wow, isn't that something? So technology is something. But something else that pops up is you and I were just talking. We started this about, I want to say last spring, about, health went out over money. And for a while, I was saying not health. Big C, you said no, the money went out. We went back and forth. It looks like college football, the health is coming. The MAC conference, Big C, the MAC, they become the first FBS conference to cancel the 2020 college football season for the fall. The Mid-American Conference officially canceled in 2020. I believe it was on Saturday, just over the weekend, because of concerns about the health and the safety of its players amid COVID-19. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, reality is starting to come into play, Charlton. As many people want to continuously say this virus is going away from the administration, this virus is continually rising, Charlton. When you think about America is reaching 1,000 positive cases every 17 to 18 days, make that 1 million, not 1,000, but 1 million positive cases every 17 to 18 days, Charlton, in this country, athletic departments and school presidents are starting to figure out that there's no way that we can keep these kids healthy.
Yeah.
We've exploited them throughout the eternity that we've had collegiate sports.
Yeah.
But right now, this is a point where they know that if they try to play collegiate sports, Charlton, that there's a kid or two that's going to end up on the respirator, if not a dozen or more. But right now, Charlton, this is where we are. Today is August the 10th, I believe you said. I get lost. I can't afford it.
It's a 10th.
But right now, we're within 48 to 72 hours of having all of college football canceled. Mark that. This is Monday the 10th of August.
Yeah.
Within 48 to 72 hours, all of college football will be canceled.
They were saying, I always tell you, when I talk to you, I always say it's raining. And now some of the good old boys down south, they're still holding out hope. I think the SEC might be the last conference to look at reality, Big C. But I think, and something you had talked about before, and you said a heart condition is something that players may suffer with. Well, it came out today. I don't know if they're reading your news, if you guys drink it out of the same cooler, Big C, but it said heart condition linked with COVID-19. It fuels Power 5 concerns about the season's viability. And the scary thing is, it is scary when you think about it. It's a rare heart condition that could be linked with COVID-19. And I think it's called as myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, has been found in at least 5 Big Ten conference athletes, among several other athletes in the conferences, Big C, according to 2 sources with knowledge of the athletes' medical care. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the point that I've constantly tried to make with you. And you said, well, athletes are strong, they recover, everybody doesn't die from COVID-19. You don't have to die from COVID-19 to be permanently scarred from this illness, Charlton, that's going around, because it attacks the internal organs. I mean, we're not bodies of glass where we can look inside and see the organs operations all the time. You have to go to a hospital and they have to do an ultrasound or
an X-ray or so,
MRI on your body to see what's going on internally.
Yeah.
But the long-term effects, and I caught it back March 20th when I went into the hospital. And here it is today. I still don't have my lung capacity, Charlton, as much as I work at it every day. But just to go up a flight of stairs, I'm huffing and puffing when I get to the top of that flight of stairs, which I had not done before.
Yeah.
So as we think about these young people and thinking about, yes, a lot of them do survive, as well as elderly people who survive.
Yeah.
There was a lady that was 103 years old.
Yeah.
Survived last week. She
Amazing.
got out of the hospital, 103 years old. But there's also kids, Charlton, that are suffering with it. In the South, there are school districts that are closing up already that just opened up in the K-12 scenario.
Yeah, Donald Trump is an idiot. And anyone that listens to a man that tells you to jump off of a cliff, you're an idiot too. But for him to tell kids to go back to school or they're going to pull your funding, he and Betsy DeVos, I think down in Georgia, as well as Texas, there's been over 200 kids that have been infected within 1 week. 1 week, not 1 year, 1 week, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Georgia alone has 3 school districts, Charlton, with over 200 kids that have been affected. Texas, I know, has 2. But these are states with Republican governors, so they really don't want to report what's going on in this state. They don't want to make the president upset.
Yeah.
Even though they don't mind if some kids die, they don't want to make the president upset. And I know the president is constantly saying, well, kids' immune system, they're able to fight it off. Charlton, there was a 15-year-old boy in New York back on May 15th, was taken to the hospital by his parents because they had both had COVID and they didn't think their son would come.
Right.
But he came down with all the symptoms. The following day, Charlton, on that Tuesday, the 16th, he was on a respirator. This was an 8-year-old boy, Charlton.
Wow.
He was on a respirator. And so when you think about that, during that week that first week he was in the hospital, Charlton, he suffered 2 strokes. He's 8 years old and he suffered 2 strokes. Have to have open heart surgery, Charlton. Think about that on the age of any person.
Yeah.
Suffering 2 strokes, having open heart surgery, and also followed with kidney failure. So when you think about the horrific ordeal that this young man had to go through, Charlton, from COVID-19, as the president and many other governors and senators that are on the Republican side saying that, well, it won't affect kids.
I know it. That's crazy.
Tell this to this young man and his family that it won't affect kids.
It's so he's just a dumb person. I hate because dumb people are like a cattle. A herd of cattle, they just go wherever they're told to go, wherever they're pulled to go. Or you fix the fence, they'll just stay within the fence, Big C, because they're cattle. And some people follow a person, a kamikaze president. He know his job is about to be over November 3rd, and he's going to be kicked out of the White House and I believe it's going to be January 20th of 2021. And so he's trying to take as many people down the river with him. But that condition that you had been talking about is usually caused by a viral infection, including those viral infections, Big C, that a lot of people associate with other infections like a mononucleosis. It's also the common cold, the H1N1 influenza. And this is the scary part. This is why women should get their pap smears and men should go get their cultures also. Because if it's left undiagnosed and untreated, it can cause heart damage. It can cause sudden cardiac arrest. It can be fatal. Now, imagine, let's just say your average college football lineman for the Power 5, they're probably about between 6 feet and 6'5", between 290 and 350 pounds. So they're already, according to some doctors, on the obese side, even though they have muscle. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they are obese. I mean, you really don't see college offensive linemen that are stealth. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen a Tony Mandarich who played in Michigan State under Nick Saban.
Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk. You know, but that was all steroid-induced.
All
when
steroid.
You see these offensive linemen, Charlton, in college football, they're carrying anywhere between 16 and 20% body fat.
Yeah.
So obesity is part of their makeup. And as we think about collegiate athletes, those are just the ones that are starting and playing. Think about some of those guys who spend the time on the bench, Charlton, as they gain more weight throughout the season.
Yeah.
And they're not in as great a condition. But the effectiveness of what COVID-19 to do to demoralize the body, Charlton, to tear it down, these are the things that they're still trying to understand.
Yeah.
And now you got to look at collegiate athletics, Charlton, just like being on the plantation.
Yeah.
That is run by slave owner mentality.
Yeah.
Is that you're going out there and you're making all this money and you're doing what we say do because it's good for you.
For white guys.
And we're going to reap the financial benefit of it.
Yeah.
This is what slaves were told their entire life.
Yeah.
Going out working hard in that heat is good for you. You need that. You need to be beat down mentally and physically.
Yeah.
It's good for you. But all the financial dividends is going to come to me. I'm master.
Yeah.
I'm the slave owner. I get the plantation. Look at the wealth that I've accumulated because of the labor off of your back.
Yeah.
So we looking at slave mentality even after the Emancipation Proclamation, Charlton.
Yeah.
Slave mentality is what college football is.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to get your head out of it in order to see it, Big C. I want to make sure that we tell people, along with the NFL, what Big C Sports is doing on every show. is we want to ask people to register to vote. You got to register to vote. And if you don't vote, then just shut up. Don't ever complain again. Get out and vote. In order to register, just text 26797. That's 26797. And then tell all your friends that Big C and the NFL said to vote. You just got to do it. I want to touch on something that it's important to me, because I know we all talk about so many things when it comes to sports. And sometimes people think, oh, you're just talking. But the reason it's so important to vote Big C, you think about POTUS. And we just told you what could happen when you have COVID-19. Again, a lot of people recover, but some people don't. There was a crowd at his course called Bedminster, Big C, and they erupted after Trump, the kamikaze president. He praised them for refusing to social distance. Here's a man telling people to commit genocide, if that makes sense to you, unless science is wrong. Somebody's lying. Either science is lying or the president is lying. But he's telling people he praised them for refusing to social distance and refusing to wear a mask on taxpayer dollar. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everything that the president does, it appeals to a party of one called himself. And you think about a president going to a golf course to hold a press conference.
Yeah.
Never in the history of the presidency have we seen something like this, that you're going to a golf course where you can pick the crowd that comes in because they pay you to be your jeering crowd.
Yeah.
And that's what they were, to be disrespectful, to disrupt the media, Charlton, when they're trying to ask questions. That shows the childishness of this president.
Yeah.
And when he was called to the point on a lie that he's told 125 times about how he's helped out the veterans in the military, even though Obama passed that bill back in 2014.
Yeah.
And for the past 3.5 years, he's told this lie 125 times that he passed the bill. He's done nothing for the veterans. So he has to ride on Obama's coattails and tell this lie. But when he's called out from the media pulpit, Charlton, he walks off the stage because he could not answer the question. Being honest. He can keep making statements, but to answer the question, when the reporter said Obama passed this bill in 2014, why do you keep lying about it?
Yeah, just like he lied about the birther thing, the guy that paid $135,000 for 5 minutes of work. Donald Trump again. But and you don't know the answer, and neither do I. But sometimes, instead of talking to myself, which I tend to do quite a bit, Big C, it's good to hear somebody else's thought. Why, with the audience at Bedminster Golf Club, not social distance, many were seen without masks, when the leader, I won't even call him the leader, because he's a buffoon. According to science, he's a ruler, and he's detrimental to people's health. They call him the leader of the free world, but he's not a leader. He officially announced the White House was a political rally and a peaceful protest. What were they protesting? Common sense, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they did practice social distancing away from him. If you looked at, he kept them 20, 25 feet away from the podium where he was standing because he didn't want them in his proximity. He didn't trust them. But he didn't mind if they made each other sick. As you look around America, Charlton, and he's never put in a federal mandate to wear masks or lockdown or social distancing. This shows a lack of leadership and callousness. He has everybody around him tested, but they have the money in place. When everyday Americans cannot get tested, and they're constantly infecting each other, Charlton, because they can't practice social distancing. They have to go shopping. They have to deal with doctor visits and everything else, Charlton. They're constantly running into each other. But by not being able to social distance, we don't have a federal mask mandate.
No.
And this is the reason why the numbers are continuously going up. As much as the administration want to say that they're going down, because they've taken control of them and they won't release the full, capacity numbers. But think about this. You say that the numbers are going down as far as positive tests. But the death rate over the last 6 days in America, Charlton, has not been less than 1,100 people in one day, and the highest has been 1,362.
Wow.
But this is the last 6 days in America, but the positive rate is going down.
I think that some people, if he told them to drink some kind of Kool-Aid, it wouldn't be the first time it's happened in life, Big C.
Well, he told them to drink the disinfectant. If you recall,
that's
the White House press conference, you drink some bleach and some disinfectant. It clears the body and kills the virus in seconds. But, somebody should have passed him a glass of it. Said, you take the first shot.
Take the first, and maybe they have. That's why he was shaking and couldn't drink a glass of water, Big C. Georgia suffered death of a COVID-19, I think 7-year-old child in Atlanta. And there's been other cases around the country also where people have passed on. But I want to get to this and follow up with that 7-year-old is pretty young. I mean, that breaks my heart, Big C. I believe it's Paulding County, Georgia. 15-year-old female student was expelled from school for posting a photo on Instagram. Kind of like the photo op that POTUS had at Bedminster with his cronies, the people that wanted to drink the Koresh Kool-Aid, Big C. She only posted an Instagram photo with crowded hallways, kind of like a POTUS rally, no kids wearing masks, and the population of this high school is close to 4,000 students for one high school, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about the callousness of the principal. He expelled this young lady, 15 years old, for posting this photo on Instagram.
Yeah. Showing
that this school was not practicing social distance or any type of health due to COVID-19. Fortunately enough, he readmitted her back into school, and he lifted the suspension, took it off her record.
Yeah.
But on that Friday, Charlton, of that week, they had 262 students test positive for COVID-19.
Wow.
After this young lady had put this photograph on Instagram.
Wow.
Showing the hazards of the high school, and the principal wanted to suspend her. But on that Friday, Charlton, they ended up with 262 students with COVID-19 and several teachers, so they had to close down the school. And she warned them against you think about it. There is a governor in that state, I believe his name is Brian Kemp.
Yeah.
And he's been fighting with the mayor of Atlanta, suing her. I know about she's closing down the city of Atlanta and putting in a mask mandate.
Yeah.
Here is a 15-year-old high school student that is more intelligent than the governor of Georgia.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot of people, they just want to drink the Kool-Aid. And it's a shame because it's just really a shame. NCAA college football, Mountain West Conference out here on the West Coast, schools like Fresno State, Hawaii, Boise State, Big C, Nevada, UNLV, San Diego State, they've canceled the 2020 college football season and other fall sports as well. They don't call it canceled. They call it postponed. They still put the pause on it. It's the same thing. It's over until they're looking at spring of 2019. Now, what do college administrators and their scientific group know that POTUS and the people at Bedminster don't know, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they understand that lawsuits can follow and soon, and they don't want to be on record, Charlton, causing some young person's death for the greed factor. That's what they're looking at right now. But, by the end of Wednesday night, Charlton, all the college football will be canceled. All the Power 5 conferences, all the lower conferences, Charlton. And I know they're all talking about rescheduling everything for the spring.
Yeah.
But what is the spring, Charlton? You're talking about bringing in, making college players, Charlton, play 2 seasons in a less than 11 months.
Yeah.
Think about that. You're putting 2 seasons back-to-back in a less than 11 months. You talk about the physical wear and tear on a body, and yet there's no proof that there'll be a vaccine in place by that time, Charlton. So as we're looking at COVID-19 and how it's running rampant as wildfire through America now,
yeah,
at the pace that it's going, Charlton, we're suffering over 1,000 deaths a day in America. It could be 200,000 by that time without a vaccine.
Donald Trump, he voiced support for hashtag We Want to Play movement. Like, he wants more dumb guys to drink the Kool-Aid that a lot of other sinister people have had people drink in the past, Big C. And maybe that's the reason why people are saying whatever Trump does, just do the opposite. Because colleges, supposedly for people for higher education, they're saying we're going to cancel seasons. But POTUS says he has a hashtag We Want to Play movement. First of all, he doesn't like black kids. Okay, we know that. They didn't even invite it to the White House when he had some white kids throwing a baseball around him. But he says that he's voicing his support for college football players, coaches, and fans around the country who are trying to persuade the university presidents and the conference commissioners to salvage the upcoming season, which says throw scientific evidence in the trash and let's get some money from our white friends that may have voted for him, because that's all he's looking for is a vote. He couldn't give a darn about those black athletes that are making $1 billion for the white owners. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, his whole stint, Charlton, in wanting college athletics to be played is that I told you it was safe. You know, it's okay for them to go out and play. This is the biggest kick in the butt that he's going to get that college football canceled. These collegiate athletes don't get paid.
Wow.
Professional athletes get paid, okay? So they have a different agenda as far as what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at an NFL owner, he can write a check for $25 million in a heartbeat.
Wow.
Because he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He can write that check for $25 million to get his players tested every day. Doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, they got players that make that much in a season, so there's no problem for him to write that check to get testing in every day for every player on that roster. So that's something they don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
When you look at what the NBA and the NHL did, they did that as a collective unit, Charlton. They put that money into a pool, the owners did, so that they could get the players tested in that pool. So they have daily testing. Major League Baseball didn't do that. What has happened with Major League Baseball? One of the series was just postponed again today for another 3 games.
Yeah.
So every day there's an outbreak in baseball. You're never going to go a week without having an outbreak in baseball. So as you think about, over 30 baseball games have been postponed or canceled thus far.
Wow.
In a matter of 3 weeks, you know, that they've been back.
In 3 weeks.
You can't say that baseball is successful. So when we look at collegiate sports, Charlton, and all of these people saying, hey, I might love the guy because he's a Republican and I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I can't put the life and death of somebody on my hands just for for him to get votes.
You know, it's interesting. Before we come up on the Big C pause, you know, you cannot sue the president personally for his official acts while in office. But if you have a company and they know that they have a dangerous workforce environment, they can be sued because they allowed their employees to go to work in a workforce environment that's been known to cause death. Like they have a thing in California, I mean, it's sure it's all over the country. If they had lead poisoning, they were taking buildings and had to restructure the buildings, take down the lead walls and put in a different kind of paint because they were being sued with lawsuits over that. But I want to ask you this question, and we may not know the answer, but like I say, I hate talking to myself all the time, even though sometimes I'm pretty decent conversation. If the president does things now that causes health problems once he's kicked out of office on November 3rd, could he be sued as a civilian then, Big C, or no?
No, Charlton, he is the government. He is not an individual doing these laws. He is the government. He's acting as the government's agent in doing this. You can only sue the government. But these universities are not immune to lawsuits, Charlton,
yeah.
as we've seen in all these sexual misconduct
That's
lawsuits
right.
of liability against these universities. It will also come back from these athletic programs, Charlton, where you had these players out there in these hazardous situations. And these universities, trust me, they know that somebody would lose their life, Charlton, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, players going to end up on respirators, but you talked about, at the opening of the show where 5 players have been hit with this heart condition.
Yeah.
And I told you these things happen, and, it come to fruition that you happen to read what I had told you that was factual.
Yeah.
It's not about recovering from COVID-19. It's about being healthy. You can recover from a car accident. Don't mean that you're ever going to walk again, but you recovered from the car accident. You're alive. Being alive versus recovering is 2 different things.
2 different things.
And that's what the biggest struggle is right now.
Yeah.
Recovering. Not being alive, but recovering.
Yep. Well, I'm just glad that smart people are starting to think. These young college people, they're not like the college people of even last year, Big C. And I know a lot of them listen to Big C Sports. You ever have a woman call you sexy, Big C? We want to be sexy. We want to be thrilling. We want to be cool. We want to be the thoughtful show. We want to be clever. We want to be sleek. We really want to be engaging. But most of all, we want to be provocative. We want to say things that are real, not phony. Hey, how's the weather? What is it like where you grew up? I want to ask real things like when you kiss somebody, do you kiss with your eyes closed or open? We'll take the Big C pause and come back. Big C, do you kiss with your eyes closed or open? We'll be right back after the break. We'll be right back in just a second. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow Big C Sports on, and I really appreciate the growth with Big C Sports. I think there's so much, Big C, that we can tie in to what's going on in sports, COVID-19, and then money, and how much people are willing to put people, they're willing to put other people in harm's way just for money. There's something called the black codes, and I want people to understand this. Black codes, they're not called African American codes, they're not called Negro, they're called black codes because that's how they were named. And pig laws. Immediately, how does this relate to 2020 COVID-19 and smart black athletes leading the pause for not playing sports, for making white people wealthy, and then putting their family in danger? Google black codes, okay, and pig laws. Immediately after the Civil War ended, Southern states enacted what's called the black codes, Big C, that allowed African Americans certain rights, such as legalized marriage, ownership of property, and limited access to the courts, but denied them the rights to testify against white people, to serve on a jury, or in a state militias, to even vote or start a job without the approval of the previous employer. They say Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. There were no white codes. These were black codes. When people say Black Lives Matter and Giuliani and POTUS says a terrorist group, no, read it. POTUS, read black laws. These codes were all repealed, Big C, in 1866 when Reconstruction began. But after the failure of Reconstruction in 1877 and the removal of black men from political offices, kind of like they're obstructing the vote now, Big C, think about this. Southern states, again, enacted a series of laws intended to circumscribe the lives of African Americans. I'm telling you, the SEC will be the last conference to cancel football season because a lot of those black men are scared down there. All they got to do is listen to Big C Sports and don't be afraid. I'm going to finish this up. I want your thoughts because it's so... These harsh laws, Big C, these contract laws, it penalized anyone attempting to leave a job before an advance had been worked off. The pig laws unfairly penalized poor African Americans for crimes such as stealing a farm animal and vagrancy statutes, and it made it a crime to be unemployed when they got unemployed by white men for the most part. Many misdemeanors or trivial offenses were treated as felonies and harsh sentences and fines. I want to say one more thing about this because the threat is that, we're going to take away your scholarship if you learn to read. The pig law stayed on the books for decades and were expanded with even more discriminatory laws once the Jim Crow era began. Big C, your thoughts?
And you think about the Jim Crow era, Charlton, which is what we live in now in the South, and that's the SEC conference that you talk about. You know, and to expand a little more on that pig law that you talk about in the South, Charlton, over in Louisiana, there was a case that was brought in front of the Supreme Court of Louisiana last week.
Yeah.
Where a man had been in prison for 20 years, Charlton,
wow,
for attempting to steal some lawn shears, you know, that you trim your bushes with.
Yeah.
20 years he's been in prison. He got a life sentence for attempting to steal a pair of lawn shears. Think about that. Life sentence, Charlton. And here it is, President Trump let all his friends out of prison. For committing harsher crimes than that. He didn't steal them, he attempted to.
Yeah.
But he got a life sentence, and the Supreme Court upheld that in Louisiana last week, saying that they would not hear it, and he's going to have to spend the rest of his life in prison for trying to steal a pair of lawn shears, a black man. So when they talk about injustice and social justice, Charlton, that's being black in America.
Yeah.
You know, a simple misdemeanor got him life in prison.
And people are trying to say, hey, boy, don't you want this scholarship? Don't you want to play for Alabama? Don't you want to play in front of 100,000 fans, boy? And I'm so proud because there's a movie called 12 Years a Slave, I believe, and also the documentary 13th by Ava DuVernay. I think people should all Google that if they can. But this is so important because I am a black man, and so are you, Big C. And a lot of black boys listen to Big C Sports. I know they do because there's no other sports program, none in the universe, that were telling these guys to pump the brakes, put on the pause, and read. You even had black men on ESPN saying, "Man, I miss sports. I don't, stuttering. I want to see the games." But their butts were sitting in their own house. They wouldn't even go into their own studio. A failure to terminate the flawed concepts of amateurism in a timely fashion if the NCAA, which is an all-white oligarchy, Big C, if it found a way to compensate players before now, the idea of proceeding with the football season would have been more defensible. But with the players still largely prohibited, for you good old boys down south, it means they can't do it, they can't get money, from profiting off of their athletic fame and powers. Asking them to accept a higher risk that comes along with the pandemic is unseemly and is also liable, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we saw two moves last week with collegiate football players. One there in the Pac-12 where they were asking the commissioner for 50% of the revenue to be dispersed between the players in the conference because they were taking all the risk. And I think also in the MAC, Charlton, where they were asking for 20%. And so the commissioner and the league decided to just cancel the season other than giving the 20% that the players demanded to play for sports. So what we've been saying for the past couple of months has gone across the airways to a lot of people that have heard what we've said, Charlton, that they should demand to be paid.
Yeah.
They're in the strongest bargaining position that they're ever in. And that statement you just talked about with the NCAA, if they had came forth in good faith measure and told the athletes, we're going to take 20% of the revenue and disperse it amongst all the collegiate football players, Charlton, from the collegiate football season, I don't think that the players would have been restrictive and fought against not playing. But they're playing with all the risk and have no reward. You know, people always talk about risk-reward.
Yeah.
They're at 100% risk and 0% reward. You know, they can say, well, you know, you're going to hurt your chances for the NFL next year. They have a combine that the NFL holds every year.
Yep.
That combine is where the NFL really evaluates their players because if they just evaluated it on the season, they wouldn't have the combine.
They wouldn't have the combine.
When I was growing up, we didn't have a combine, Charlton. That was long before that.
Yeah.
So these players, I am very proud of the current collegiate players now, Charlton, saying we're not going to play. And the NCAA, by Wednesday night, will cancel all of college football.
You know, and this is led by black men. Anyone in the universe, I want you to see we're not just a shut up and dribble. The young black college athletes, if they were professional, maybe they would put their health on the line. But don't you dare go out and give a free labor for a white man to get wealthy and give you a hat and a T-shirt. We've seen that garbage too long. College football, this unprecedented athlete mobilization, Big C, think about it. It's played out against the backdrop of administrative chaos, stripping bare the two great failures of college sports over the last decade. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about college chaos, Charlton, we talked about the college football needs a commissioner.
It does.
Somebody to sit there and count the nickels and dimes.
It's more than nickel and dimes. Right.
They need somebody there to oversee that. They don't have that.
Yeah.
And when you have all these independent conferences around the country, Charlton, well, this is what we do. We keep our money. We're not sharing it with you.
Yeah.
This is the reason why you don't have any understanding in college sports.
Yeah.
Is because everybody technically is an independent when it comes down to it at the end of the day. And without having a commissioner, somebody who is going to go out there and fight the battle, who's going to take the water balloons and thrown at him, they don't have that in college football. So each commissioner is left trying to explain what's going on. And if the commissioner can't explain it clearly enough, then you turn it to the athletic director.
Yeah.
And if nobody wants to see the athletic director, then you're talking to the head coach. So you got too many layers. College football is like an onion. You got to peel back all of these layers trying to find where it's smooth at, Charles.
Yeah. Big C, I think you're the only sports guy in the universe that peels back onions to see how smooth they are. But it's all fair enough work, Big C. The lack of centralized, I think, and unfair leadership in the NCAA itself. Again, black men. I know some white guys are involved in NCAA sports too. When it comes to Power 5 teams, those are 85% black kids. And those white guys have places to go once they get out if they don't play sports. But the NCAA itself, Caucasian President Mark Emmert, Big C, he's been strictly irrelevant during this summer-long talk about the issues of sports and COVID-19 and money. The fate of Division I sports, in my opinion, it comes to rest with the Division I Council, which by the end of this week almost certainly will have nothing left to decide, because even these bright minds at these college universities, they cannot outsmart science. If they're going to outsmart science, cancel all your science programs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you look at where Mark Emmert is, Charlton, I believe it mid to late March when he canceled NCAA basketball, where he just took all the tournaments off the board and canceled the college basketball championship and the rest of the participating college sports during that time. And so as we look at Mark Emmert since March, and we're in August right now, he's put together, he's tabled no plan for getting college sports back on the table.
Nope.
For making it safe for players, for having any type of medical protocol that would protect players.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, from March to August, he's had, 5 months to get this in play?
Yep.
And he's done nothing. This lets you know of the leadership of the NCAA, Charlton. It does not exist. And this is why you and I advocated months ago that the Negroes need to go out and form their own league and start going back to the historical black colleges.
Yeah.
This is what they need to do. When you see that the white governing body of the NCAA does not care about you, and when you demanded that you wanted compensation from the billions and billions of dollars that they were going to be making, you wanted 50% on one behalf, 20% on another. They said, we'll just cancel everything other than give you a damn dime.
And I think it's because you won't hear any other sports show other than Big C Sports saying, put your health over money. They're all begging you to go play because that's how they eat, by watching you get sick. I want to read something because a lot of people want to go to Europe, Big C. It ties into sports. In fact, it's like it was written for Big C Sports. After August 1st, 1834, all slaves in the British colonies, they were emancipated, and slavery was abolished throughout the British possessions, Big C, all over the world. And they told all the slaves they'd be free. But I want people to understand this. They say, what's this got to do with sports? It has everything to do with sports. And about reparations. I'm telling you, reparations already happened for white people. No one in America makes $1 billion without working. But white people do. They own the NCAA. They're part of the college fraternities. They're part of the college presidents. They all get a salary based on black men showing up to work. Think about this. Why Big C Sports and reparations? Slavery in Great Britain. It ended in 1834. The British government using loans. You know, a loan from the Bank of England. You know what they used it for? To compensate slave owners, Big C, for free labor from black people. What's the NCAA trying to do now? Free labor from black boys? The government finally paid the loan back in 2015. I'm talking 1834 to 2015 is when they ended slavery, Big C, in Great Britain. They were insuring with Lloyd's of London slave ships from 1619 to 1834 with black men. Lloyd's of London, of the world's biggest insurance markets. It made huge profits from the slave trade, like free football for black kids, free. But the companies make $1 billion with the NCAA, the Power Five. Think about it, and I'm going to throw it to you. The slave ships. People talk about slavery, and we don't need reparations for black Americans. Would you believe Lloyd's of London insured the slave trips for the transatlantic slave trade, and the loans weren't paid back until 2015? That's just 5 years ago, Big C. People say, "Oh, I wasn't around when slavery happened." They just paid back the loan. Worldwide banking gave white people loans to buy slaves. Today, black people often are denied loans, especially when they're trying to get a loan for a farm. President Truman, 1948, U.S. Marshall Plan. It rebuilt Europe after Lloyd's of London gave them money to insure the slave ships. Even in 2020, with the $6.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, over 90% of black businesses were denied, Big C. That money went to white businesses and companies. That's called reparations for white Americans. Black men in college football, they're breaking reparations for white men, at least for this season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, they're not breaking reparations for white men this season, Charlton. Did you remember last week on the show when I told you that the Pac-12 was out to get $1 billion loan to cover those athletic institutions, Charlton, and they would be able to pay that back over 10 years. Now, you think about a black group of people trying to go out, and 12 black people trying to go out and get $1 billion loan. It's not going to happen, Charlton. But the Pac-12 Athletic Conference will go through and get that $1 billion loan for its 12 participating institutions, and they're all run by white people, Charlton, so that reparation continues for white people.
Well, that's very well said, Big C. That's very well said, and that may take a second look by the underwriter when they realize, or the season canceled, and they're going to tell the white men that ask for that loan.
They're not going to look at that. They're going to say future earnings. You got to understand, and you've been in that business, Charlton, where you understand they look at future earnings as far as being able to pay back a loan.
Yeah.
That's what they base it on. They know that they're going to have television revenue coming in as long as that conference exists. They may have a stall this year in playing football, Charlton, but I guarantee you that money will continue to flow for the next decade, next 2 decades, out there in the Pac-12 with their television revenue. And we know how hungry people are going to be once football does come back in another year or 6 months, whenever it does come back.
Yeah.
But those television contracts are not going away. Those butts in the seats are not going to go away. So they can forecast their future earnings based on what they've done the last 5 years. And that's how they prorate that and get that loan, Charlton. This is what we've done for the last 5 years. This is what our projection is for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
We'll be able to pay this loan back. So that they have the money on the books to show that they can do that. And so they'll get their money. Anytime a white conference wants to go out and get reparations for its institution, it's not a problem. But let an HBC go try to apply for a $200,000 loan, Charlton.
Then they're a terrorist
have
group.
Problems trying to get that.
Yeah, then they call them terrorists. These black people want loans. They're terrorists. White people want to, hey, good to see you, Joe. Hey, Bill, how you doing, Bill? Come on in, John. Sit down. Now, they're going to explain, we're going to be short on the supply. You ever see Scarface with Tony Montana, Big C? He said, never get high on your own supply. Remember that? There's a line. He said, never get high on your own supply, Tony Montana. So now the white bankers are going to, the white conference owners in the NCAA, they're going to go to the bankers and say, that first batch, these guys started reading. I told you don't let the slaves read, because when they read, they're going to realize, why are we working to make white people rich and we lose a scholarship if we get a steak dinner? I want to bring something up because I think it's appropriate with what we're talking about. In the NFL, National Football League, COVID-19 cases, slowing, several players have missed 10 or more days from Friday through Sunday, Big C. There were only 5 players placed on the NFL's list of COVID-19 cases. That brings a total to 105 placed on the COVID-19 case, including in that list with 74 active and 5 being waived. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is what the NFL is not disclosing to people, Charlton. You're not in the bubble. You just stated 105 NFL players have tested positive for COVID-19. That's more than the number of players who opted out for the season.
Yeah.
And now these players go on this exempt list. We see the size of some of the offensive linemen and even defensive linemen in the NFL today, Charlton. 330, 350-pound linemen.
Yeah.
That's unhealthy on the best day. We've seen the death of several linemen over the past couple of decades in the NFL, Charlton, from heat stroke and heart problems, you know, whether it was in practice or even away from the game, Charlton. It has happened.
Yeah.
You spoke earlier in the broadcast about this heart condition that they found out coming from COVID-19.
Yeah.
The NFL has put 105 players on the COVID PUP list.
Yeah.
So you think about it, they're saying that they're not able to play. So when these players come back, Charlton, what's going to be the physical condition of them, allowing them to compete with the other players? We know the heated conditions of summer training camp. It is overheated. You got that helmet on your head. Your head temperature, Charlton, is always above 103 degrees with that helmet on. You just can't stay cool. So is this going to manifest COVID even more, Charlton, being out there in practice with these players?
Yeah, the answer is probably yes, Big C. That's just, you know, secondhand smoke. You know, they used to allow people to smoke on airplanes. And the secondhand smoke, you didn't have to smoke a cigarette to get the secondhand smoke. And some of those people still got cancer because they got the second. And you can see the smoke, Big C. You can't see COVID-19 smoke. I want to go to Major League Baseball because, people can say, oh, you just lying. You just talking. There's no sports show in the universe that would say, welcome to the show. That was usually something used, you know, for Hollywood or some guy doing stand-up comedy. But Big C Sports started out 5 years ago saying, welcome to the show. Now other people have started saying it too, but they go, welcome to the show. Major League Baseball. I saw an advertisement. They didn't call me about it. I said, Big C doing another deal, not even telling me. Major League Baseball, they have some well-known names from J.D. Martinez, Mike Trout. They have Aaron Judge. They have Verlander, Molina, and Yelich, Big C. And they're all walking into the stadium. You know what they have scribbled on the ground? Welcome to the show, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, people have plagiarized us ever since we've been on the air in various facets of our show. I mean, I appreciate the publicity that we get, but at least give us a shout out.
Yeah, don't steal it. Don't you ever have somebody come to your house and you let them they can have a libation, but it's okay if you offer it to them. But when they steal it and they're trying to pour moonshine in their pockets and it's dripping down their pants, that's not nice, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, it's not. Especially don't drop it on the white carpet.
It's all over the white carpet, Big C. So Major League Baseball, like Big C Sports says, welcome to the show, featuring J.D. Martinez, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge. You have Verlander, Yelich, and a couple of other good boys. But there was a brawl, Big C, COVID-19 brawl between the A's and the Astros. Now, we always say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words won't hurt me. But words will cause a fight, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess none of those players between the A's and the Astros, Charlton, read that 113-page manifesto or whatever it was
no, they
that Major League Baseball put out about the do's and don'ts of baseball.
Yeah.
They said no spitting, no grabbing the crotch, no chewing sunflower seeds.
What fun is that?
And all those things.
Yeah.
But, fighting is a part of baseball, Charlton, just like all those other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a bench-clearing brawl, so evidently social distancing
didn't work.
Not there.
No.
So what happens if either one of these teams tests positive now, Charlton, for COVID-19? We just had a 3-game series postponed today again, and here it is, a bench-clearing brawl.
Yeah.
What does Major League Baseball do in this instance, Charlton? Do they suspend players?
No.
Because we know that you got shortened rosters to start with.
Yeah.
And it's not like you got fans in the stand watching and cheering for anybody.
Yeah.
But baseball, Rob Manfred, it seems like every day he's getting more and more of a hole that he can't dig himself out of. He's starting to sound like college football.
Yeah, college football. But, oh my goodness, I just had another epiphany. When people say, Black Lives Matter, and POTUS and his boyfriend, Rudy Giuliani, says they're a terrorist group, and that lady Kelly Loeffler says Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group. You know what Black Lives Matter just did, Big C? Black Lives Matter, it matters so much, it's going to cost the NCAA billions of dollars because black men are starting to read. Just like Frederick Douglass read. And when you read, you realize a lot of these white guys, they're not on your side. And the only thing they've ever been able to hold over you is, hey, boy, I'll give you some more money. That you too dumb to work for yourself and get it. So take your labor and make me rich. That's how dumb they think black men are. And what I'm hoping will happen, a lot of things that we talk about happen, Big C. I'm hoping that people will register to vote, just text vote, 26797. That's 26797. And I'm hoping that now that you're all on the pause and you realize that these white men would rather cancel the season than give you money. And I hope that you get some black lawyers together and some black attorneys and go down and talk to the HBCs and get the top black talent to leave these white schools that wanted to get you sick. And when you said, give me some money, they said, no, we'll just cancel the season. And go down to the HBCs and talk to the TV companies just like The Rock did when he bought the XFL and see if you can revitalize the HBCs. All you need is a couple of TV contracts to have several $1 billion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's an easily done thing if they choose to go that way. And it's going to allow everybody the opportunity to breathe, especially the athletes, to sit back and reevaluate where you are and what you can accomplish. Knowing the power that you're going to possess after this season is being canceled, that you're actually the big man on campus. Literally, just like what they told you when you were being recruited. You have more power now than you'll ever have at any other time, and you need to exercise that.
You need to. Think about it. I told you, Big C Sports want to be sexy. We're sexy, Big C. I know they call you sexy, but does it bother you when a woman wants to touch your head just because you want to see what a bald head feels like, Big C? It does.
Well, Charlton, I try to keep my distance. You got 6 feet apart.
Okay, I understand. It's all fair level war. We want to be sexy. We want to be thrilling. We want to be thoughtful. We want to be clever. We want to be engaging. But we really want to be provocative. And we want you to Google whatever we say and compare Big C Sports to anybody else. I told my friends over at Spotify that you're giving Joe Rogan $100 million over 10 years. The only difference between him and us is we don't cuss and we're black. And we're the vanguards. And he even says, welcome to the show. That's plagiarism. Give Big C Sports $100 million. You can Google it. It's all fair in love and war. I want to go out to San Francisco. You know why? Because, Big C, I told you many, many times, I left my heart in San Francisco. Colin Marcala, Big C, I'm telling you, he dropped his trophy, but he also won at TCP Harding Park in San Francisco. And when you think about it, he is a young man. I mean, he's a young boy. He looks like he's 14, but he's a young man. He just graduated. I think he graduated to Cal Berkeley, 23 years old. And so he joins guys like Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods. And as far as winning at such a young age, I don't know if you saw how beautiful San Francisco is. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, but I'm so proud of a foreigner coming in winning. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's actually 22. He wins his first major at the age of 22.
22.
But will anybody remember who he is in 2 months? Will he move the needle on the golf course? He came into Sunday's final round 2 shots behind off the lead, Charlton, and he ended up winning by 2 strokes.
Yeah.
Tiger shot a 67 on Sunday, which is very palpable.
Yeah.
You know, only if he had done that for 4 days.
Yeah.
But when you think about golf, I mean, everybody was riveted to the TV watching that because of the interest, and you had the leaderboard that was so clustered. But, you know, as we look at this Pandora of winners, every time we have a major tournament, Charlton,
Yep.
we seem to have the next guy up. And we always got somebody younger and younger because they're playing without pressure.
Yeah.
But once they win that tournament, Charlton, that first major, you look at Jordan Spieth. Where was Jordan Spieth at? I mean, 4 years ago, everybody thought Jordan Spieth was the ice that was in the glass.
Yeah.
He was so good.
Yeah.
And now he's been on a long, long drought.
Yeah, he's been on a drought, Big C. But you think about the star power, Dustin Johnson, he started with a one-shot lead. The power of Tony Finau, Bryson DeChambeau out of Central California, Cameron Champ out of the Northern California, Sacramento area, Jason Day. And of course, whenever Tiger Woods shows up, he's still the guy that people pay attention to. Tiger really has made golf a beautiful sport just by adding some flavor and dominating. And, you know, I really wish all the golfers well. It's still a little bit different watching it without the people around the course, but it's still a great thing. But I want to close off today's show as our show goes by way too fast. You know, I want to just congratulate you on something, because I was telling you how I was saying that sports, when it comes to sports, we know it's $1 billion industry, but I was saying that money went out over sports. And you were saying the health went out. I was saying, no, the white men do anything for money. But I think I'm partially right and wrong. Because when these black minds got together and said, you got to pay us for our likeness or we're not going to play, the white men decided to cancel the season. That's why they canceled it, because the guys were asking for money. And you said that the health went out because they canceled for health. Big C, you still feel that way? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I feel both ways on it, Charlton, because they can say they canceled it because of the health, and they don't have to say we're canceling because we refuse to play these black kids some money.
Yeah.
You know, money is the thing. It's always the driving force. Health made them realize after a lot more of these medical studies have come out, especially with the heart and lung condition, Charlton, that is created by COVID-19.
Yeah.
But when these players, as we talked about for the past couple of weeks, that they need to demand money from these teams because right now they have more power than they ever would.
Yeah.
We saw 2 conferences do that, Charlton. We saw the Pac-12 and we saw the MAC conference do that, where the players went to the athletic directors and said, we want money,
yeah,
period. We want it now.
Yeah.
Because without us, you have no season.
Yep.
And so I think both of those things came into play as far as by the end of Wednesday night, we're going to have all the college football canceled, is that these players have said, we want money. And they said, when do you want it? We want it now.
Yeah.
Now. Because without us, you get $0. With us, you get all your money. Without us, you get $0.
Yeah.
And they sit there and they weigh that. They say, you know, we would rather take $0 than take 80% on one behalf and 50% on the other behalf. You think about how greedy you have to be, Charlton, to do that.
Yeah. That's like saying Now share these box of cookies with your siblings. If I can have it all, I don't want none of it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's basically what it is. It's like they took their marbles and went home. That's what the NCAA is doing.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting there playing and having a chance to put all the marbles in the circle and lose a few of them, they said, no, I'm just going to take all my marbles and go home. And we have an insurance policy in play. And I guarantee you that's what's going to start coming out over the next couple of weeks, is that all these universities have insurance policies versus loss, Charlton. Just like players can get insurance policies on their body versus injuries, these universities have gone out and taken out epic insurance policies, Charlton, on the catastrophic thing occurring. And they did this last year when they first canceled college basketball. That these universities went out and spent millions of dollars on insurance policies to guarantee that they would receive revenue. This is the reason why they want to cancel and not give players any money.
That's very true. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Spotify, anywhere in the world. And I really mean this in the final minute or so, Big C. I'm asking every person that you're looking at opportunities. Big C Sports may even have our own show on Sirius Satellite. And I don't care what anybody says. There's so many people that have covered our platform. But we're the only sports show that told these young black men that your life matters. It does matter. And when white men, when they figured out they had to pay you because you're no longer dumb and you won't shut up and dribble, they decided to cancel the whole season if they got to give you some of the money that you produce. And I hope and pray, and I mean this, there's so many black law firms, so many black lawyers, there's so many black sports agents, and they are ostracized from getting NFL talent. And people know what I'm talking about because I know enough black agents. You guys get together, talk to The Rock if you have to. Quit going back to these conferences that would rather not play than pay you, and start helping out HBCs. If you don't do that, at least don't pay. Don't play again without getting some kind of money. $1 billion and you get nothing, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the $1 billion is there, but they also got to worry about the feeder group that's coming along. Those kids that are, due to come up over the next couple of years. There was a study that came out today, Charlton, from Boston University. Very prestigious when you want to talk about the Boston, Massachusetts area. In the last 2 weeks of July, Charlton, just 3 weeks ago, over 100,000 K through 12 kids tested positive for COVID-19. You got your president constantly saying it doesn't affect the young people. But when you got 100,000 K through 12 young people that have tested positive for COVID-19, and you mentioned earlier in the show that the young kid in Georgia that passed away, I believe, around 7 years of age.
Old.
And yet you hear nothing about this from the national stage saying that kids are affected. 100,000 kids, and we talked about the one young boy in New York that suffered the 2 strokes, the open heart surgery, and the kidney failure. He was 8 or 9 years old. So, as we look at the lies that are perpetuated every day through the media, through the news cycle, Charlton, these black kids got to get a grip on it right now. I mean, you talk about reparations, Charlton. That's the reparations that's sitting there for them. It's a matter, are they willing to take it? That's what it comes down. Are they willing to take the reparations? It's being handed to you right now. That's what's being done to young black Americans. We have reparations here for you. How keen are you on taking it and making something for the rest of your life?
That makes so much sense. We have a dream. I have a dream. Have a dream and ask for the money. Or don't play. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, before this week is over, college football will cancel, which will make the NFL a more valuable product than what it is already. So when you talk about going to the bargaining table, the NFL will hold a gun to the television broadcast rights here.
Yeah, they really are. You guys keep reading, and keep following Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day. God bless.